Bad starter versus bad solenoid. An easy way to tell. Ever had your car refuse to start at the worst possible time? You turn the key or press the start button, and instead of hearing the engine roar to life, you get a single click. Or maybe a rapid series of clicks, or maybe nothing at all. Right away, your stomach drops. You wonder if it's the battery, the starter, or something worse. A lot of people guess wrong and spend hundreds of dollars replacing parts that weren't even the problem. And here's the tricky part. Two of the most commonly confused parts in this whole "my car won't start" mystery are the starter motor and the solenoid. They're bolted together. They depend on each other. And when one of them fails, the symptoms can look almost the same. But they're not the same thing. And if you can tell the difference, you'll save yourself time, money, and a lot of stress. The solenoid is like the gatekeeper. It decides when to let heavy battery power through. The starter is the muscle. It cranks the engine over. If one fails, you're not going anywhere. But the way they fail is different, and that difference is exactly what we're breaking down today. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the real-world signs of a bad starter versus a bad solenoid. You'll see what each one does, why people confuse them, and what symptoms point one way or the other. And stick with me because I'll also show you a couple of simple tests you can do in your driveway that can nail the diagnosis in just a few minutes. And hey, welcome to Auto V Fix, where we explain car problems in plain English so you can stay ahead of your repairs and keep more money in your pocket. So let's start with the big picture. Every time you start your car, there's a chain reaction that happens in just a second or two. The battery provides the power. The ignition switch sends the signal. The solenoid acts like a heavy-duty switch. And then the starter motor spins your engine until it runs on its own. When you turn the key, the solenoid clicks, the starter engages, the flywheel turns, and boom, the engine starts. But if any one of those links fails, the whole process stops. That's why no-start problems can feel so frustrating. A weak battery, a corroded ground, a faulty solenoid, or a failing starter motor can all leave you with the same end result. Nothing happens. So let's talk about what the solenoid actually does. Think of it like a gatekeeper or a middleman. When you turn the key to start, a small current flows from the ignition switch or the relay into the solenoid. Inside, a magnetic field pulls a plunger. That plunger does two jobs at the same time. It pushes the starter gear forward so it can mesh with the flywheel, and it closes a pair of heavy contacts that let full battery current rush into the starter motor. Without the solenoid, the starter might spin freely but never touch the flywheel. Or worse, it might not spin at all. Now the starter motor itself is the heavy lifter. Once it gets power from the solenoid, it spins with a lot of torque to crank the engine. Inside, it's got brushes, bearings, an armature, and a gear that all work together. Over time, those parts wear out. Brushes get short, bearings drag, coils short out, gears wear down. When that happens, the starter starts giving you slow cranking, grinding noises, or sometimes nothing at all. So how do you tell which one's failing? That's the real question, and the best way is to pay attention to the signs. Let's start with solenoid signs. If you turn the key and hear a single loud click but no crank, that's almost always the solenoid. The click is the plunger moving, but the contacts inside are too burnt or too worn to send power to the starter. You get the noise, but no engine turn. Another sign is no sound at all. You turn the key, nothing happens. No click, no crank. That can mean the solenoid never energized because its coil is dead, or it's not getting the signal in the first place. It could also mean a blown fuse or dead battery, so check those first. But if those are fine, a silent no start points toward the solenoid. And one more sign is when it works sometimes, but not others. That's the solenoid starting to fail. The contacts inside are sticking or burned, so it engages randomly. Now, starter motor signs are different. The first one is rapid clicking. You turn the key and hear click, 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 but the engine doesn't turn. That's the solenoid trying over and over, but the motor isn't spinning. If your battery is good, rapid clicking usually points to a bad starter motor. Another symptom is slow cranking. The engine turns, but it sounds weak and sluggish. If the battery is fully charged, slow cranking almost always means the starter is worn out inside. Another clue is grinding noises. If you turn the key and hear harsh metal grinding, that means the starter gear isn't meshing properly with the flywheel. That's a mechanical failure in the starter. And finally, if you hear the starter spinning, but the engine doesn't move at all, that means the one-way clutch inside the starter has failed. The motor spins, but it's not transferring that motion to the flywheel. Now here's where it gets confusing. Both a bad solenoid and a bad starter can cause the engine not to crank. Both can act up randomly, and both can leave you stranded. That's why you can't always go by sound alone. But don't worry, there are simple ways to tell the difference. Step 1 is always check the battery. I can't stress this enough. A weak or dead battery can mimic both problems. A healthy battery should read about 12.6 volts when it's charged. If it drops under 9 volts while cranking, it's too weak. And no starter or solenoid will work properly with that. I've seen people spend hundreds on a new starter when all they needed was a new battery. Step 2 is to check the signal wire at the solenoid. There's a small wire that comes from the ignition switch. When you turn the key, that wire should get about 12 volts. If it doesn't, the solenoid isn't the problem at all. It means the issue is further upstream, like your ignition switch, a fuse, or the starter relay. If that wire does get 12 volts and the solenoid just clicks or does nothing, then the solenoid itself is bad. Step 3 is to check the output side of the solenoid. The solenoid has two big terminals. One connects to the battery, the other goes to the starter motor. The battery side should always have full voltage. When you turn the key, the starter side should light up too. If the input has voltage but the output doesn't when you crank, the solenoid is failing. If both sides have voltage and the starter still doesn't spin, then the starter motor is the problem. Step 4 is the old school screwdriver test. This is a quick driveway check. Put the car in park, press the brake, and make sure everything is safe. Then bridge the two big solenoid terminals with a screwdriver. That sends battery power straight to the starter motor, bypassing the solenoid completely. If the starter spins when you do that, the motor is good and the solenoid is bad. If the starter doesn't spin at all, then the starter motor itself is bad. You'll get sparks when you do this, that's normal, but it's a very telling test. This is why diagnosis matters so much. A solenoid might cost under $100, while a full starter replacement can run several hundred more. On some cars, you can change just the solenoid. On others, you have to buy the whole starter assembly. Either way, guessing wrong could mean spending way more than necessary. So why do these parts fail in the first place? Well, starters and solenoids live a hard life. The solenoid's contacts burn over time from heavy current. The starter's brushes wear down. Bearings get sloppy. Heat from the engine bay makes it worse. Corrosion or bad grounds add resistance and stress the parts. And if you do lots of short trips or stop-and-go driving, the starter gets used way more often and wears out faster. The best way to help them last is simple. Keep your battery healthy. Clean and tighten your connections. Check your grounds. Those small steps reduce stress on the starter system and can extend its life. Now let's do a quick recap, so it's easy to remember. One loud click but no crank usually means solenoid. No sound at all can mean solenoid, relay, or wiring. Rapid clicking often means starter motor or weak battery. Slow cranking with a good battery points to starter motor. Grinding or spinning without engaging is almost always starter motor. And remember, always check the battery and cables first. So now you know the difference between a bad starter and a bad solenoid. You know what each one does, the signs they show, and how to test them. Next time your car leaves you stranded, you won't be guessing. You'll know exactly where to look, what to listen for, and what to test. And that knowledge can save you from throwing money at the wrong repair. If you found this helpful, give the video a thumbs up and share it with someone dealing with a no-start problem right now. And if you want more car advice explained in plain English, don't forget to subscribe to Auto V Fix so you can stay one step ahead of your repairs and keep more money in your pocket. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.